Hey guys, my name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today is going to be the beginning of a reading vlog of me reading books outside of my comfort zone. Because in my July TBR, I mentioned that I would like to read some books this month that are outside of my comfort zone. I originally said that I wanted to do this like every other book, like read one book that's like in my comfort zone and then read one book that's out of my comfort zone and try to go like back and forth all month. It's only the 4th of July right now and I already read 4 books so far this month. I've just busted out a book every single day and they've all been well within my comfort zone. But I feel like I'm on such a reading spree right now that I just have such an urge to want to read lately. So I feel like I just need to get in as many books as I can while I still have this urge, and I'm afraid that like reading something outside of my comfort zone is gonna like put me in a slump immediately. But I'm ready, so book number 5 is going to be the first book this month that's outside of my comfort zone. And so I figured I'd start with one of these books here. The first one is Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. I know that some might say that this book isn't really out of my comfort zone because it is considered a thriller, but this one is more of a literary thriller and it takes place partially in a courtroom setting, which isn't really my thing. Like, I know I did read that book last month, 13, which was one of the first legal thrillers I've ever read, and I actually really enjoyed it, but that book was also definitely way out of my comfort zone. Not usually something I would pick up. But this book has just been getting a lot of praise and it's just barely kind of out of my comfort zone a little bit, so I figured this might be a good one to start with if I'm going to be reading books outside of my comfort zone, because this one is still a little bit in my comfort zone because of the whole thriller thing. Another book I would like to get to during this video is Scythe, and this one is definitely out of my comfort zone for real because it's a young adult dystopian sci-fi fantasy. I'm not really too sure about the genre, but it sounds really interesting, and I just bought it the other day at the bookstore because I was like, I'm doing a whole video this month on reading books outside of my comfort zone, so like might as well add to the pile, right? Hopefully I can also get to this book at some point this month while reading out of my comfort zone. But yeah, I have a few different books that I do want to be reading for this challenge that I'm doing for myself, but I think the first one I'm going to start with is Miracle Creek just because I feel like this one won't put me in a slump, and I do feel like since this one is a thriller, it'll be a lot easier for me to get into right away and make me feel more confident about this challenge. So yeah, you'll hear back from me once I've finished this book or gotten a reasonable amount through it. Hello again. It's been a few days since I last saw you. Today is July 8th and it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I finally finished reading Miracle Creek. It didn't take me like 4 days to read this book, but I've been working. I worked doubles 3 days in a row, so I wasn't really having a lot of time to read, and so I read the majority of this book last night and early this morning. This one I feel like was a really good one to start with books that are out of my comfort zone, because I do feel like this book was outside of my comfort zone because it's like a literary fiction book and like a courtroom thriller. And while I do enjoy literary fiction and I do enjoy thrillers, this definitely wasn't something that I would usually pick up just because of the whole courtroom drama aspect. I'm just not usually a fan of that. This book ended up being pretty good. I ended up giving it about a 4 out of 5 stars, I think. This book was like really sad, and like, you know, it has to deal with autistic children and immigrants, and like the whole premise of this book is that this mother is getting accused of killing her autistic son, and then it's like involved with this fire that started, and it's just like this whole drama, you know. And this book, honestly, it kind of reminded me of a few different things. It reminded me of Little Fires Everywhere, I think, just because of the whole immigrant family and the fire that started, and like the writing style, the way it feels like literary fiction. It kind of reminded me of Little Fires Everywhere, and then it kind of reminded me of Where the Crawdads Sing, mainly because of the whole courtroom drama stuff happening towards the end of this book. Kind of felt like Where the Crawdads Sing, where there's like a mysterious murder. And then it also kind of reminded me a little bit of Big Little Lies, which is so random, I know, but just because of the whole like the group of mothers in this book that had all these children with needs, and so these moms would try to be competitive with each other, being like, my child has it so much worse, you know, like, and it just felt very like Big Little Lies to me in that sense. So I did really enjoy it though. I mean, it was really sad, and I feel like this is the kind of book that takes me a lot longer to get through than the average 350-page book. There's just so many words, and like the paragraphs are so long, and there's not a lot of dialogue in this book besides like the courtroom scenes. There's a lot of dialogue, but this is definitely like a character-driven story. So there's a lot of paragraph after paragraphs of like thoughts that these characters are having. And so you really get into the mind of almost every single character in this book, which is also really cool. It did kind of remind me too of like Ask Again Yes, in the sense that it's like about this tragedy, and we follow like so many characters and get to see all of their different points of views and see how this one tragedy and one mistake affected so many people's lives. So I mean, this book was just really great, and it did remind me of a lot of things that I do really love. So that's why I feel like this was the perfect first book to read for this Books Out of My Comfort Zone experience, because courtroom thrillers just aren't really my thing, but I really did enjoy this. It was a great time. First one was a success. Now I'm really excited because I just got something in the mail yesterday, and this is the book that I want to read for my second books reading out of my comfort zone vlog experiment thing, and that is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. And I'm really excited about this because I've never read anything by Brandon Sanderson, and I know that he's a very, very well-loved author, and I think he writes a lot of sci-fis and fantasies, but this one is one of his most popular sci-fi books. I feel like this one is really going to be something that's out of my comfort zone, because like Miracle Creek, while it was out of my comfort zone, this still is a book that I selected from Book of the Month, and I still like had it on my TBR, and it was still something I wanted to read even though it was just a tad out of my comfort zone. But this is something I probably never would have picked up if it wasn't for other people and their rave reviews and things, you know? So like I'm actually really excited to read this. All I know is that it's like I want to say it's young adult, but I'm not too sure, but it's a sci-fi novel about this girl who's a pilot, and like that's pretty much all I know going into this. So it's gonna be my first Brandon Sanderson experience, and I'm really excited about it. Look at this cute little puppers. It is the afternoon of July 9th, and I am 100 pages into Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Ugh, this book is like making me feel so slumpy right now, and I'm like not happy about it because I'm only 100 pages into it, but it's taken me like 3 different sittings to get 100 pages into it, which is like never a good sign to me. I feel like because it's a young adult book, it's just reading like such a young adult book to me, you know? Like these characters just feel very like immature, and like the main character keeps referring to this guy as Jerkface, and she's just like, yeah, Jerkface, whatever you say, Jerkface. And it's like, seriously? Like Jerkface? Like, are we 5 years old? This character, like this main character in here just reminds me of so many other like main character girls that you see in these like sci-fi or dystopian novels like Divergent, where they're just like so like temperamental. She's like the chosen one, and you know, all that stuff. Like I'm just kind of like not really feeling this one right now, so I feel like I'm gonna set this one aside for now. You know, another thing in this book that made me realize what I don't like about some sci-fi books is when there's this like period of time where they're like training all together, where all these young people are like training in some kind of like training camp or like school or whatever, when they're all like training how to like learn to be like the best fighters and whatever. Like that kind of stuff in books like bores the absolute shit out of me. Like I do not care. I honestly don't care about this flight school. Like I thought I would care because I think reading about pilots is like really cool, but like I just really don't care about like the pilot school. And it sucks because I know this book has such high reviews on Goodreads and everybody really seems to love it, so like I might try to pick this back up a little bit later, but for now it's kind of putting me in a slump, and I'm just like not happy about it, and I'm just irritated with all the characters in this, so I'm just gonna set it aside for now because I got at least 100 pages into it, so I feel like if I don't like it now, like I don't know if I will. I do have all these other books that I really want to get to, possibly all in this video. One of the first ones that I showed you earlier is Scythe, because this one is a young adult dystopian sci-fi fantasy ? This one is lengthier too. This one's like also almost 500 pages, but this one, I don't know, I feel like this one I might enjoy more. I also do have 6 of Crows and of Court of Thorns and Roses, which, you know, I've heard from a lot of people that these are perfect fantasy starter books, and I'm kind of nervous to like jump into fantasy because like if I'm not feeling a sci-fi, which is a genre that I usually enjoy, then I'm just like really nervous to like jump into a high fantasy book. But I've heard that these aren't too like high of fantasy books, and I've heard that there's actually a lot of romance in A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I think will draw me in to the story more. I don't know, maybe I'll have to start one of these later tonight soon. It's July 10th right now, and it feels like it's gonna storm today. It is the morning / afternoon of July 10th, and I have gotten 100 pages into Six of Crows. I know I'm gonna sound like a broken record when I say this, but like I'm just not feeling this book at all. I'm just so uninterested, and it's like I don't really know what I expected trying to do this like reading books outside of my comfort zone challenge, because like I really do, like I know what I like. I guess I just thought maybe if I did try to give books another chance again, like I mean I have tried to read fantasy in the past and it's just never been something that I've enjoyed, you know, but I thought maybe if I just like give it another chance or just really challenge myself to push through it, then maybe I would enjoy it. But I think I just realized that I just really don't care. Something that's like really annoying to me is that whenever I try to read something like fantasy or heavy sci-fi, these books use so much language that I don't understand, and it takes me so much longer to get through it. Like last night I read 50 pages of this book and it took me nearly an hour and a half, which is insane. And then I read the next 50 pages this morning and it took me about an hour to get through those 50 pages, and it's mainly because I keep getting distracted while I'm reading because I can't pay attention to what I'm reading. Like my brain is just like so like wanting to check my phone and like do other things because I can't focus on this book. And like I don't know, I think part of it too is because these past 2 books that I've tried to read have been like young adult, and I'm just like not a huge young adult reader anymore. So like maybe that's also the problem. Like maybe I would be enjoying these books more if they were adult books, because this book is definitely reminding me of like some TV shows like Riverdale and like some young adult stuff that I just like don't care about or can't stand. I think the thing too that I realized about this book is that this book doesn't seem like it's too heavy of a fantasy in comparison to like some other fantasy novels, but this one revolves around this heist that these 6 people are like trying to do, and I guess I just realized that I don't care about heists. Like I really don't. All these characters in this book just seem so like I'm a badass and I'm dark and I'm like a thief. I just don't care. It makes me sad because I really had high hopes for this one. Like I thought this one would be the one that I would like the most out of all the different fantasy kind of stuff that I was gonna try. But now I'm like, So I'm gonna set this one aside too. And it sucks because I've read 200 pages in these last few days and I have nothing to prove for it because I'm not probably gonna finish either of those books. So I feel like I either need to take a break from this challenge for a bit and maybe read another book that's in my comfort zone to like get me back into a reading mood, or I might try to read something that's out of my comfort zone that's adult. This one is about this guy who has like magic abilities, but he's like in an ordinary town. So I feel like this book has some like magical elements, which makes it outside of my comfort zone, but it also might have a more contemporary feel to the storytelling, maybe. At least that's what I'm hoping. It's about this guy and his magical abilities in this like normal town. So I'm hoping that this is something that's a little bit more like readable for me. Hello again. It has been a couple of days since I last saw you. It is the night of July 14th, so I think it's been like 4-ish days since I last spoke to you. Since then, I have read a contemporary novel, and it was cute, and it was romantic, and it was everything that I needed and that I was wanting. And I'm starting to feel like I don't know why I started to make this reading books outside of my comfort zone video, because it's honestly kind of starting to put me into like a slump or like a mood where I just don't really want to read, because like I know I'm going to be reading something that I don't really want to read. a last-ditch effort to save this video because like I feel like this video has been such shit already so far, and I feel like I don't even know what I'm doing or why I'm doing this. But I did say that I would read Scythe in this video. It was like one of the first books I mentioned, and this is still something that I want to try. I know that this is probably a terrible idea because it's young adult, which is something I just said that I'm really not interested in at all lately, and it's like dystopian sci-fi fantasy-ish. I don't really know exactly, but I don't know, like the premise of it kind of sounds like Blade Runner almost, like it's giving me Blade Runner vibes with that description. So I'm thinking maybe I'll enjoy this, you know, you never know. So with a last-ditch effort, I'm gonna read Scythe, or I'm gonna try to read Scythe. I'm gonna try to get a decent amount into Scythe. Hey there, so it's the next morning, and in a completely unexpected wild turn of events, I am really enjoying Scythe. I got 118 pages into it last night, which I was not expecting to be able to get that far last night because I was pretty tired last night, but I got invested, like, and I can't stop reading it. It's so crazy because, to be honest, this is the one I thought I would like the least because it's a young adult dystopian novel kind of, and I just can't stand all the like hype surrounding all the dystopian novels like Divergent and The Hunger Games, and like I guess all those books just kind of ruined the idea of young adult dystopians for me. But I think I discovered something about my reading taste last night, is that I do like dystopians, I guess, but only a specific type of dystopians. This book takes place in the way future, like probably like 2050s or 2060s, like somewhere in there. And this book talks about how humans have conquered death. Like we no longer have to worry about dying. But then there's the issue of overpopulation because nobody's dying. We've figured out how to prevent death, and now everybody's living like immortally. So now they have these people called scythes who randomly pick people to kill because the overpopulation is too much of a problem, and society has agreed that there has to be some kind of natural selection still taking place. So I guess like it does give me such Blade Runner vibes because the scythes themselves do represent kind of like a Blade Runner. So I guess that's why I'm enjoying it so much. It's like a young adult Blade Runner, but like I'm just so shocked that I'm actually like loving the shit out of this, and I can't wait to continue reading it. And I'm just genuinely surprised, and now I'm really glad that I just decided to give this book a chance, because like I was like 90% wanting to bail on this whole video and this whole idea, and now I'm really excited about this one. So hopefully it continues to impress me and stay amazing. I guess like the kind of dystopian novel that I really enjoy is a dystopian novel that feels very close to reality to me, where like a realistic issue in the world, like overpopulation, is accounted for in the book, and they kind of do something about it, I guess. Does that make sense? Like that's the kind of dystopian novel that I actually really enjoy, and because of that, it does feel very sci-fi. It feels very like futuristic world, so it doesn't feel like too fantasy, you know, because like that's another thing that I know about myself that I don't enjoy is fantasy. And so I know this is technically fantasy, but it's still like our future world. It's not like a completely different made up crazy mythical creatures land world, you know? Like it's our world, it's just years and years in the future. So it's our future world, so that makes it feel more science fiction to me as opposed to fantasy. And I don't know, it's interesting. I also looked it up, and I think this is a trilogy. I know the second book is called Thunderhead, and it's out, and then the third book is coming out this November. So like I'm not saying I'm gonna read the other two, but like if this one goes well, like I might want to be interested in picking up the second book. Like I don't really know. So okay, quick update. I'm on page 256. Still really enjoying this, and I turned on the Blade Runner 2049 soundtrack because it really sets the mood, I think, for this book, and because it's giving me such Blade Runner vibes. So I figured this would be the best way to read it. So I only have this much left. So it is the next morning. Last night I got 370 pages into this book. I only have 60 pages left. And I read last night, I want to say I read about 100 pages, I think. I literally stayed up until like 1:40 in the morning reading this book, and I wanted to finish it all last night, but like I couldn't possibly stay up that late to finish it. Like I didn't want to stay up that late, so I only have 60 pages left right now, and so I'm gonna bust it out and finish it, and I'm loving it so much. And it's just so crazy. Like, I didn't think I would love it this much, and the closer I get to the end, the more and more plot twists keep getting thrown in, and I love the fact that there's like a mystery thriller feel to this book right now too, which I didn't expect at all, and I'm just loving so much. And yeah, I'm just really excited to finish this, so I'm gonna eat my breakfast real fast on this patio and finish this book now. So it's about 1:30 in the afternoon, and I just finished reading Scythe. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so like excited and giddy and just like what over this book right now. Like, I think this might have been a 5-star read for me, which is so crazy and like so unexpected, and like it ends on such a like kind of cliffhanger where I'm just like, I need to read the second book like now. And this was so crazy and so unexpected because like honestly, like for reals, this is the one I thought I would like the least out of all the books that I've been trying recently, and this one ended up being my favorite. Like, I don't know why, I usually don't like picking up the next book in a series because then I start to forget things from the first one and it's just like all a jumbled mess. But like, this book was just so freaking good, and it was so interesting and so fascinating, and I really want to read the second book. And I was just looking it up on Goodreads, and like the second book has even better reviews than the first book. Like, people are saying the second book is even more interesting because it's given more time for the story to develop, and then by the second book it just really takes off. So I'm like, what the heck? Like, I'm gonna order the second book off of Amazon tonight. Like, I am just genuinely so surprised that I loved this. Like, I loved it. Love, like, the concept of this book was really cool. And you know what's so funny is that like earlier in this video I was saying like I hate books that involve like a training period for like the main characters to like train like in pilot school or like whatever. Like I just said about Skyward, I was just saying like it was so annoying how they were like all young adults like training in pilot school. But like in this one it was really cool because these two main characters were working under one of the scythes, Scythe Faraday, and he was like training them to become a scythe. But I think it was more interesting because he's like training them how to kill people, and it's like, what? Like, it's just so bizarre that this is like a thing that exists in this world. But also I love the fact that this book has a mystery thriller vibe towards the middle of this when there's like a suspicious murder, and then you're trying to figure out like who did it, and like there's like stuff going on. Like, it feels like very like thriller mystery towards the middle of this as well, which I really liked. But this book definitely feels a lot more sci-fi to me than it does fantasy. Like, oh my god, it was just so good, dude. I'm like shook right now. I'm like so surprised. Honestly, I thought this reading books outside of my comfort zone video was gonna be a 100% fail flop, but I feel like because of this alone it ended up being successful, because I probably never would have picked this book up if it wasn't for me doing this video and wanting to read more books outside of my comfort zone. So like, I mean, maybe it's still a total epic fail because I really only completed 2 books. I mean, I've been doing this challenge for like nearly 2 weeks now, and I only completed 2 books that were outside of my comfort zone. So I mean, maybe it was a total epic fail, but at least I tried. I think doing this reading books outside of my comfort zone challenge has proven to me that I should pick up books outside of my comfort zone from time to time, because you never know. So I think that'll be all for this video, but I do think in the future again, I would like to do another reading books outside of my comfort zone video later this year maybe. Like maybe in the fall time. It would be fun to do another one. So let me know what you think of this concept, like if you like a video where I read some books that are outside of my comfort zone, and let me know what your thoughts are on any of these books that I read this week. If you think I would like Six of Crows or Skyward if I continued with them. I mean, I probably wouldn't. Like, I'm just being honest, they're just really not like my kind of thing. But let me know your thoughts on them, and let me know any books in the future you would like to see me do a reading books outside of my comfort zone video on. Like, is there any books you would recommend to me for those future videos? I already have some books in mind that I would use, for another future video, but if you have any recommendations, please let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I will see you guys soon with a new video.